The storm arrives just as evening settles over the city. What begins as a flicker on the horizon quickly becomes a brilliant, continuous display of electrical activity stretching from one end of the skyline to the other. Residents crowd windows and balconies, watching forks of lightning connect with the highest rooftops. For a brief moment, it feels like nothing more than an unusually intense thunderstorm. The power stays on, buildings remain steady, and the glow of neon signs still reflects off the wet streets. It looks dramatic, but to most it appears harmless. This early calm exists because modern high-rises are built to guide lightning safely into the ground. The tallest structures bristle with metal rods called air terminals, forming the top layer of a lightning protection system designed to intercept strikes. When a lightning bolt connects with one of these terminals, the electrical charge flows through heavy copper or aluminum conductors that run inside the walls. These conductors channel the energy into deep grounding electrodes buried far below street level. This system ensures that, in a typical storm, even a strike carrying a voltage in the hundreds of millions poses no threat to the building's occupants. In these opening minutes, everything works exactly as engineers intended. The constant rumble of thunder shakes windows, but the infrastructure holds firm. Electronics remain stable because the city's grounding network disperses each strike safely and efficiently. People record the storm on their phones, uploading videos of lightning arcing across the skyline. Local weather stations monitor the storm's activity, noting that the frequency of the strikes is unusually high but not yet alarming. The illusion of normalcy stretches on, yet something feels slightly off. The intervals between flashes grow shorter until the sky barely returns to darkness before another bolt explodes downward. Meteorologists watching radar data notice that the storm cell is not drifting as storms normally do. Instead, it is almost stationary, locked in place by unusual atmospheric conditions. They recognize that this immobility is highly abnormal, but they do not yet understand the scale of what is happening. Inside the city, no one realizes that the storm's behavior defies the patterns of any typical thunderstorm. Most storms move because of large-scale wind patterns that push them across regions. A nearly motionless cell means the same area is being struck repeatedly, far beyond the design assumptions of normal infrastructure planning. The real danger lies not in what has already happened, but in what is coming next. For now, though, people assume the storm will pass. They assume the engineering will keep them safe. They assume this is just another dramatic evening. 6 hours into the storm, the mood in the city shifts. The sky, once simply bright with flashes, now pulses with a relentless strobe-like rhythm. There is no true moment of darkness. Each lightning strike sends a burst of electromagnetic energy outward, and with strikes occurring almost continuously, the city's electrical systems are under pressure they were never designed to endure. What was initially viewed as a dramatic weather event is becoming an unprecedented electrical assault. Every lightning bolt produces an electromagnetic pulse, strong enough to induce voltage in nearby conductive materials. Under normal conditions, these pulses are harmless because infrastructure is built to handle occasional surges, but with the storm sitting motionless over the city, the pulses are occurring so frequently that they are beginning to overwhelm protective equipment. Surge protectors, inside substations, transformers, and power distribution centers absorb enormous amounts of energy, but each device has a finite capacity. As the lightning continues without pause, these components begin to fail. Transformers, which normally operate within a strict range of electrical load, face repeated high-energy spikes that exceed their insulation limits. Some units overheat as their internal cooling oil fails to keep up with the increasing electrical stress. Others short out as the metal components inside them warp or melt from repeated surges. The moment a transformer fails, it triggers an automatic shutdown to prevent further damage, cutting off power to entire neighborhoods. These outages do not happen at once, but instead spread slowly and unevenly across the metropolitan area. The city's electrical grid reacts to each failure by rerouting power to compensate, but this redistribution places additional strain on the remaining infrastructure. This phenomenon, known as a cascading failure, can begin with only one or two damaged components. In this case, dozens are being hit with intense surges every minute. As more transformers go offline, the load on the surviving sections increases dramatically, accelerating the collapse of the system. Streetlights begin flickering as voltage levels fluctuate. Traffic signals, which depend on a stable power supply, malfunction or shut down entirely, turning major intersections into dangerous zones of confusion. In high-rise buildings, elevators pause between floors as backup systems attempt to compensate for irregular power flow. The first reports of electrical fires emerge as small appliances and outdated wiring in older structures fail under the growing stress. What makes the situation worse is the storm's persistence. Because the storm is not drifting, electrical workers cannot wait for conditions to improve before starting repairs. Lightning repeatedly strikes key pieces of infrastructure, making it unsafe for crews to even approach the damaged components. This leaves entire districts with no power and no immediate possibility of restoration. By the end of the 6th hour, the city is divided between pockets of light and expanding regions of darkness. The skyline still flickers with the glow of lightning rods doing their job, but at ground level, the early signs of systemic instability are unmistakable. The residents do not yet understand the scale of the crisis, but the first and most critical pillar of modern life, the electrical grid, is beginning to crumble beneath the weight of a storm that refuses to end. 24 hours after the storm first settled over the city, the situation has escalated far beyond electrical instability. The lightning has not weakened. In fact, meteorological models would show that such a stationary storm cell could grow more electrically active as atmospheric charge continues to build. With the grid failing in large sections of the city, a new danger begins to dominate the landscape: fire. Lightning is one of the leading natural causes of structural and wildland fires, and by this point, the storm has delivered far more strikes than any urban area has ever absorbed in such a short period. The tallest and most modern skyscrapers, shielded by multi-layer lightning protection systems, continue to channel energy safely into the ground. But these systems are not universal. Many older structures, particularly those built before modern building codes required standardized lightning protection, are vulnerable. Their rooftops and exterior materials offer little resistance to a direct hit. Small fires begin in isolated pockets, often unnoticed at first because communication systems are already deteriorating. One strike ignites the roof of a century-old apartment building whose wooden beams have dried over decades. Another bolt finds the metal vent of a commercial warehouse, overheating wiring inside the walls until flames break through. In residential neighborhoods, trees are hit repeatedly. Moisture inside the trunks flashes into steam, causing sections of wood to burst outward and scatter burning fragments across yards and rooftops. Compounding the situation is the failure of electrical infrastructure. When power systems collapse unevenly, certain circuits can overload in ways that cause appliances, breakers, or outdated electrical panels to ignite. Under normal circumstances, fire departments rely on a coordinated emergency dispatch system and functioning traffic lights to navigate toward trouble spots. But with electricity unreliable and signals failing across half the city, response times lengthen dramatically. The spread of fires becomes a logistical nightmare. Roads are clogged with stalled vehicles whose electronic systems were damaged by electromagnetic surges. Streetlights are dark along major corridors. Areas that still have electricity face sporadic power spikes that complicate the work of firefighters using electrically powered equipment. Meanwhile, severe winds generated by the storm's updrafts and downdrafts act like bellows, feeding oxygen into open flames and carrying embers into new areas. By the end of the first full day, the city is no longer simply battling a storm. It is contending with dozens of independent fire outbreaks, each growing faster than emergency teams can contain. The skyline, still illuminated by constant lightning, now flickers with pockets of orange glow scattered through multiple districts. Smoke begins to blanket low-lying areas, reducing visibility and introducing hazardous air quality conditions. The modern city, engineered to withstand typical severe weather, is now encountering a type of event that no building code, emergency plan, or electrical system was ever designed to handle. And this is only the first day. The days ahead will reveal consequences far more severe as the invisible systems beneath the city begin to collapse completely. A massive lightning storm that refuses to end would not just damage a city's power grid or communication lines. Over time, the entire structure of the city would begin to fall apart in ways that most disaster plans never fully prepare for. The first major issue would be transportation. With constant lightning, airports would shut down, bridges would be unsafe, and road sensors would stop working. Emergency vehicles would struggle to move because every exposed area would be a potential strike zone. Another problem would be the breakdown of supply systems. Delivery trucks would be unable to operate normally, and the constant electrical surges would cause refrigerated storage to fail. Grocery stores and pharmacies could run low on goods within about 1 week, especially items that require cold temperatures. Even fuel supplies would become unreliable, because electric pumps and safety systems would be affected by repeated surges. Water management systems would also face new dangers. Continuous flashes of lightning can damage pumps, treatment plants, and pressure controls, leading to contamination risks. Stormwater drains would overflow day after day because the ground would never have time to dry. Flooding would move higher into neighborhoods and commercial areas, even without heavy rainfall, simply because drainage systems would be overwhelmed. Hospitals would reach a breaking point as well. Backup generators can run for a limited amount of time, but constant lightning makes fuel deliveries dangerous. Sensitive medical equipment could fail because of repeated surges, and doctors would need to rely on simpler tools. Patients who require powered devices would be the most at risk. Meanwhile, long-term lightning strikes can create heat pockets and electrical fires across the city. Firefighters would struggle to contain these blazes because every time they deploy, they expose themselves to open-air danger. Even metal equipment could attract strikes, making rescue attempts more difficult. Over several weeks, entire blocks could experience rolling fires, caused by the non-stop electrical activity. Psychological stress would rise sharply too. Humans are not built to live under constant flashes, thunder, and the feeling of an unstable environment. Studies show that ongoing severe storms can increase anxiety, sleep problems, and decision-making issues. In this scenario, those effects would be multiplied because there would be no break in the noise or tension. By this stage, the city government would face hard choices. Leaders would consider partial evacuations, resource rationing, and limited curfews to keep people safe. But even those actions would be complicated because outdoor movement would be risky. The longer the storm continued, the more a city would shift from normal operations to survival mode. After weeks of non-stop lightning, the question becomes whether a city can continue functioning at all. At some point, the damage to infrastructure, public safety, and the natural environment would reach a level that no emergency plan could sustain. The first major concern is long-term structural weakening. Buildings are designed to handle occasional storms, but repeated electrical strikes can slowly damage roofs, metal framing, and grounding systems. Even structures built with lightning rods would eventually face heat stress and wear. Another major challenge would be the loss of essential workers. Over time, police officers, firefighters, medical staff, and utility crews would be stretched far beyond normal limits. Many would need rest or relocation simply to stay safe. Without a full team of trained personnel, key services would start to collapse. This shortage would make it harder to maintain order, treat injuries, or repair damaged equipment. Resource depletion would become another deciding factor. Water treatment plants, fuel depots, and communication hubs cannot operate indefinitely under constant electrical stress. Supplies could not be transported easily because of the continuous strikes, and the risk to drivers would increase each day. After a certain point, keeping people in the city would be more dangerous than moving them out. Environmental changes would also play a role. Continuous lightning can spark ground fires, especially in dry areas, and those fires can create smoke that lingers over neighborhoods. In other regions, the ground may stay saturated for so long that trees weaken and fall more often, creating another layer of danger. Repeated thunder and flashes can also disturb wildlife, causing animals to flee into urban zones and create new hazards. And at this stage, governments would likely declare a full evacuation. Moving people during an ongoing lightning storm would be complicated, but not impossible. Officials would rely on sheltered routes, staggered departure windows, and reinforced transportation vehicles to reduce exposure. Emergency shelters outside the city would need to be prepared with food, power, and medical support for thousands of people arriving at once. Once the city is empty, the final challenge becomes long-term recovery. A never-ending lightning storm would leave behind damaged electrical grids, contaminated water systems, weakened buildings, and scorched land. Engineers would need to inspect every major structure before anyone could return. Restoring utilities might take weeks or even months, depending on the scale of the storm's impact. In the end, while a massive never-ending lightning storm would not literally erase a city from the map, it could force a complete evacuation and leave the area unlivable for an extended period. The true danger is not a single strike, but the slow, relentless breakdown of systems that people rely on every day.